Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be looking at the astrology chart of President Donald Trump. Recently, there's been some controversy about some files that look like they're going to be released. He was actually uh, trying to not have these files released, but it looks like some of the congressmen and women that they're actually going to go forward with this at the making of this video. So we're going to see, could these files be damaging politically to President Donald Trump? That's what we're going to be assessing using the astrology chart. And we'll look also into what's going to be happening into the near future here. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Also, if you're interested in your own personal reading, check down below for details. Let me pull up the astrology chart of President Donald Trump. And by the way, this astrology readings for entertainment purposes only. All these statements are just my astrological interpretation of the energies in this astrological chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Vimshatari Dasha over here. Remember that in Vedic astrology, they have these planetary timelines that you're essentially on. At every moment of your life, you're on one of these timelines. So in President Trump's case, he's in a period called Jupiter Mahadasha, Venus Antardasha. So this is the major period, the Jupiter period, and then this is the sub period. This is more of the major energy, and this is more of the acute energy. Mahadashas can last anywhere from 6 to 20 years. In Jupiter's case, I believe it's 16 years, if memory serves me correctly. And so he's in this 16-year long Jupiter period, but then the Venus period is the more focused energy. So let's focus on more of that Venus energy, because that gives us a little bit more to look at here. So Jupiter Venus, the Jupiter Venus time frame is from September 2024. And remember, I actually thought it was not going to really help him with winning the election. But there were some transits, like the Jupiter transit, that were really helping him. But we'll explain why in a moment, just because Venus is in the 12th house, and the 12th house tends to be associated with losses. But we'll take a look at that in a moment. September 2024 to May of 2027 is really what we're looking at with this Jupiter Venus period. It's going to take place, it looks like, most of his presidency. Now, I mean, unless there's a third term, which some people have kind of proposed, even though right now it's only 2 terms that presidents are typically allowed. So let's go ahead and talk about why Venus, what it really means for him. Okay, it's in the 12th house, it rules the 10th house, and it rules the 3rd house for Leo ascendant. And let me clean this chart up a little bit. Now, the thing about Venus in the 12th house, the 12th house is one of the Dashtana houses. So remember, 6, 8, and 12, these are known as the evil houses. But out of the 12th house is usually the most, I would say, the most benign out of the 3, because 6 and 8 are usually really difficult houses. The 12th house is more associated with energy loss, endings, like giving up, kind of surrender. It kind of reminds me a lot of what K2 represents. But the 12th house can even represent things like retirement. Okay. So when we think about health wise, there's already been some health issues with President Donald Trump in this presidency, and this might be a real issue for the next few years here because of this 12th house effect here. So I noticed there was a recent video that came out of, like, he was in some sort of meeting and he like fell asleep in the meeting. Well, the 12th house is actually rules things like sleep, dreaming, other worlds. So there is this idea of just losing that energy. 12th house can represent hospitals. So health issues can definitely arise during 12th house periods. And when I usually think about 12th house, it's usually like age related things. Like, you're just, natural aging causes us to, have those situations. Let me go ahead and clear that up. But 12th house can also be like, if we're thinking about in terms of a presidency, it could be just like losing popularity, losing that edge, and I think I've been seeing some of the polling numbers have been going down to sort of a low point, especially since the government shutdown. And so the 12th house can represent kind of this like energy drain from even political. If we think about political capital, political support, there's just kind of this drain where now he's even having members of his own party in the Congress trying to release these files, even though allegedly he was not wanting these files to be released. So 12th house can have that issue there. There's just this loss of support and vitality. However, if we're thinking of like a political resignation or something like that, there's some factors in the chart that are preventing that, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So definitely we could see a loss in support, a loss in political capital. He's got the Saturn transit, what's happening in the eighth house. And this chart over here, by the way, is the current transits. So Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, which is Donald Trump's eighth house. Now, when Saturn's in the eighth house, it's interesting. It can kind of be protective of scandals in a way. It can limit a lot of the damage that a scandal will actually, what it can do. So, for example, for Leo ascendant, Saturn rules the sixth house. And when it's in the eighth house like this, it forms something. So, sixth lord in the eighth house, it forms something called Harsha Yoga. So, Harsha Yoga. And this really, what Harsha Yoga does for Leo ascendant is essentially, even when your enemies like have these really like intense accusations, or they have this, these lawsuits, these, whatever enemies would do. And I'm trying to relate it to President Donald Trump's case. Even impeachment threats, if you think about it, it's almost like Harsha Yoga is protective. It's like you can spin that situation to your favor. So for example, Harsha Yoga could be like, they level a threat of impeachment, and he's able to leverage that as, raising more, fundraising money to help him, that they're out to get him again or something like that. So that's what Harsha Yoga can do. It's really hard to have a downfall when you have Harsha Yoga going on. And that's one of the things about his chart right now, which is making me feel like, well, he definitely didn't want these files released, but I think that the fallout is going to be limited in scope. And I know there's a lot of people thinking like, oh, this is, I was watching social media. I was seeing some videos where people were saying, this is going to be the end of the presidency. This is going to be, but he's been very protected. Even when we look at before he became president this last time, there was the whole thing with the becoming a felon thing, and people were saying it would be impossible. And he's always able to weather these events, and it's kind of interesting. Uh, there's also a yoga formed by, in his natal chart, you see Saturn is the sixth lord, remember, and it's in the 12th house. So remember, if you have like the sixth lord going in the 12th house, you have like a negative house lord going into a negative house, it like tends to mitigate whatever damage that planet's going to do. So, okay, so sixth house would be enemies, accusations, lawsuits, all those things, and it just turns it around. It loses vitality. So right now, he's in that Venus period, which is really influenced. It's really influenced by Saturn, actually, because Venus is right next to it in the sign of Cancer. So I feel like with this current Vimshatari Dasha period he's in right now, it feels like he's going to be able to probably weather this whole thing, even though there's people that are thinking this could be doing some real damage. I feel like it's going to be limited in scope, what it does. He's got those two factors going on. So he's got in his natal chart, he's got that Viparij Raja Yoga, um, just with Saturn, the sixth lord being in the 12th house. Then he's got transiting Saturn, which is that Harsha Yoga, which is really protective. don't get me wrong, there's going to be a lot of, with Saturn in the eighth house, there's a lot of difficulty during that transit. And that transit's happening. It started in March of 2025, and that transit goes till February of 2028. So during this whole time, there's a lot of, eighth house represents scandals, drama. And by the way, Saturn in the eighth house can represent things like martial law. It can represent trying to maintain order in emergency situations, which those situations could still rise. Recently we saw there's been different moves with putting National Guard in different cities, and that's definitely aligned with this idea of Saturn in the eighth house. Saturn's all about it's trying to maintain order. Now, remember, this is from the native's point of view. So, I mean, there might be people that say, well, there's not really a need for it. But remember, this is the native's point of view. He needs to somehow establish some sort of order. Okay, that's the idea here. Uh, the particular reason why these files are being released right now, if we look over, we got Mars, Mercury, and Sun are all in the sign of Scorpio over here. These are the transiting planets. And so Sun, when it's in Scorpio, Sun can bring the light secrets, things that are inconvenient to us and what we're going to do. So I feel like he's going to weather this, but as a longer term prediction, what I do want to say though is the health issues might be very real. For the next few years, I see, there might be more of this losing vitality, and there could be, some real issues there with the health. So they got to be careful about his health. So anyways, let me know what you think down below. Do you think these files could actually cause a lot more political damage, or do you think he's going to be able to weather it like I'm saying the charts suggest? Let me know what you all think. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.